Selling your car to Carvana is as easy as...
As easy as pie?
Sure. All you have to do is enter your license plate or VIN.
As easy as a stroll in the park.
Okay, then just answer a few questions and you'll get a real offer in seconds.
As easy as singing.
Why not? Schedule a pickup or drop-off and Carvana will pay you that amount right on the spot.
As easy as playing guitar.
Actually, I find that kind of difficult. But selling your car to Carvana is as easy as...
Can be.
Visit Carvana.com or download the app to get an instant offer today.
This is a More Than Just podcast production.
Welcome to Spotcast, Season 6, Episode 14. My name is Tim Mitra. I am in Toronto, Ontario, and I'm joined once again by Jonathan Kuline in Mississauga, Ontario.
Hello there, kids.
And Jaime Lopez Jr. in Seattle, Washington.
How's it going?
It's going pretty good. I lost a house last time. I just got going from you last time. I don't know how that worked, but there you go.
Couldn't have gone back to the previous 160 plus episodes and found a how?
Now that you say that, I probably could have. In fact, you know, we did discuss doing a super, what do you call it? Supercut? I think.
Yeah, the supercut.
We were going to do a supercut of Jaime saying, "How's it going?" So just for those of you driving or transporting at home, I did go and listen to the first like 3 or 4 episodes of either More Than Just Code. He says it the same way every single time.
So what you could do is just take one of them and loop
just
it.
Repeat it. Yeah.
And be like, here's all 500 times Jaime has said, how's it going?
Yeah, we'll get Scratch Bastard to do like a, rap track underneath and how's it going? All right.
I would definitely give you a follow on that one.
Would you? All right,
yeah,
cool.
Definitely that.
All righty. So we do have some fact check from last week. Like Jonathan mentioned, you couldn't quite, I know you've mentioned it today in the show and in the show notes, but the episode that Jonathan was talking about with Christopher Pike having a pleasant future was, most people would know it as the Menagerie, which is the 2-part one where Spock gets attempted court-martialed for hijacking the Enterprise and taking it to the planet, which now I can't remember what it is. Something Vega?
Yeah. Vega 4 or something, yeah.
Yeah. And,
oh, man, there's next week's fact check.
I know, eh? And then, but that was actually also it was based on the original pilot, which was called The Cage, starring Jeffrey Hunter as Christopher Pike. Is that right? Yes. No. Is it Jeffrey Hunter? Yes, it is Jeffrey Hunter. Yes. Gary Lockhart was in the actual first broadcast episode. Alrighty, and the other piece we were talking about is what are we saying? African American? How do we say it now? Is that correct term? I can never know.
Depends if they're from America or
black. You were talking about black people on the original show, other than Nichelle Nichols. But William Marshall played on The Ultimate Computer. That was the episode I was talking about, where they thought the Enterprise could be driven by a computer. You don't need these pesky humans. That was Daystrom, Dr. Daystrom. Which we should all feel shame for not knowing that's who that character was. And but he famously also was Blackula.
Oh yeah.
And which of course his co-star on those movies, or one of those movies, was Pam Grier, who was resurrected by Quentin Tarantino. Interestingly though, about William Marshall, like, as a kid, how you kind of recognize a face. Well, I recognized him from Star Trek. I was probably about maybe 9 or 10 when I saw him in a made-for-TV movie, and I tried to look on IMDb to see if I could figure out what it was, but where he played a bad guy, like he had a bludgeon and he would beat people, and he was like a slumlord or something like that. And that was the first time I ever really kind of clued in that people can be like nasty pieces of work, right? So, and that was him playing the role. So. Scarred me for life. I still remember that. Anyway, so we'll move over to headlines.
Hold on. I got the fact check for the fact check. It was Talos 4. I got the 4 right. It was Talos 4.
Thank you very much. Vega was the name of the girl, right? Vina was the name of the girl.
I want to see how far down this rabbit hole you're going to go.
Yeah.
Yes, it was Vina. You were absolutely right. It's Vina.
And they were Telosians, those guys, the brain people.
The big brainy people, yes. Which is funny because that's also the same character name from Secret Invasion, which we'll be talking about in a little bit.
Did you know that the Telosians were all female actors?
You know what? That makes sense.
Yeah, because they were all short, right?
Well, no. I mean, they kind of had an androgynous look.
Yeah, shorter stature, yes. That's true. Sorry, Jaime, what were you saying?
I think they might have done something like that casting-wise for the Bynars in the next generation as well.
Oh, right, yeah.
Like they learned from that old TOS trick of like, hey, you can get this particular look if you cast them this way.
Nice. Yeah, that's true. That's true. All right. All pesky testosterone. But we'll head over to the headlines. And speaking of testosterone, here's Jonathan with the headlines.
Oh, wow. Thank you for that. I wanted to start this week with a little Star Trek news. So I saw this pop up on my newsfeed this week, and I thought, wow, that's awesome. So there was an announcement this week that a classic DS9 novel is getting an audiobook. Now, this is particularly relevant for a couple of reasons. One is that the book in question is called A Stitch in Time, and it was written by Andrew Robinson. And Andrew Robinson, for those who do not know, played Garrick, the tailor/spy, perhaps Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, on the DS9 series. He wrote this book after the series ended. I do own it. I have my original copy still on the shelf. It is a great book. It's written about Garrick, sort of from his perspective, and Robinson did a great job on the book. But there's never been an audiobook version, and I guess a little bit of a groundswell. Simon & Schuster has confirmed that they will release the first audiobook adaptation of this book that is now 23 years old, and it will be narrated by Andrew Robinson himself. So you can actually have Garrick reading as Garrick reading this book, which sounds awesome, because he is actually a really good performer, and in that role particularly very memorable. So yeah, I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, that was kind of a cool sleeper role, I think, on the show, because he would sort of show up, and because I don't think we realized he was a spy until much later, like several episodes in, right?
Well, they definitely alluded to him having a mysterious past, but there was always that, is he just messing with Bashir, or is he actually sort of somebody important that has been sort of hiding out on DS9 under the noses of Starfleet? Right. And then, of course, as the series plays out, you do learn more and more about sort of his involvement and everything else. And also there's the whole sort of subtext of the fact that he clearly wants to sleep with Bashir through the whole thing, too.
Really?
So, my God, you could cut the sexual tension on those conversations with a knife.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Jaime, you agree with that assessment?
Yeah, I think so.
I wasn't imagining that, was I?
No.
He looked at Siddiq Al-Fadil like he wanted to, serve him with a side of ice cream.
Yeah, I gotcha. All right. I have a story here, quick one. Since we talk about Ticketmaster a lot and Live Nation, this is just a quick one that the U.S. government is going after Ticketmaster and Live Nation to stop junk fees in the selling of tickets to people, which is kind of interesting. It's kind of good to see. But I think, who was it we were talking to? Maybe it was More Than Just Code. We were talking about Taylor Swift concerts, and the reason why it got the big news is because the congressman's daughters couldn't get tickets to the show, and that's how it became went into the American government and upset the whole regime. So,
yeah, is it going to be called the Taylor Swift rule or the Robert Smith rule?
Yeah. Oh, it's funny. Annie reached out to me. She's got tickets for Mastodon, and she was asking Mastodon and somebody else. I can't remember the name, but she was saying that they had instituted the same transfer rule, right? Like, you couldn't. Yeah. So she was trying to figure out how we upgraded our seats and stuff. And
I mean, in an affordable and equitable way. When people weren't using them, they put them back for the exact same price they paid for them, and the people who were there were able to purchase them. That's how, in theory, it should work, as opposed to the inflated prices that Ticketmaster charges for its own tickets, as well as the ones that scalpers sell. So, yes, please. If we could make that the standard, that would be excellent.
Well, yeah, I mean, like if you're the first guy to the gate, then you deserve to have a seat at the show, if not a better seat at the show. But the fact that we were able to upgrade twice for the Cure was great, right?
Yeah.
So it should be like that all the time.
Absolutely.
All right, back to you, John.
Yeah, this is sort of a twofer here. So, one, I will start by saying that Tim and I went to go see...
Oh, spoilers.
Went to go see The Flash last weekend.
Mm-hmm.
and so we can do the spoiler-free review of that.
Before we do that, so I enjoyed the movie.
I also
right?
enjoyed the movie.
So I think the Rotten Tomatoes and the ticket sales do not reflect on the quality of this movie. That's my recommendation. Go see it.
I agree. I think it was... I actually heard a whole conversation on a podcast that is quite popular that I quite enjoy this week. And they talked all about what a big, huge flop it was. And then both of the people on the podcast admitted they hadn't seen it. And I was like, hey.
Oh, you gotta be kidding me.
Come on. Like, I get, obviously, people have DC movie fatigue. I get that, obviously, a lot of people understand that there's a regime change there and these movies are not quite as cohesive as they perhaps were in the past. But don't critique things you haven't seen. So, that being said, we did see it. I thought that there was a lot to like about it. Again, I won't go into the plot details. Obviously, in the trailer, you know some of the basics. You know that there's a reappearance of Michael Keaton. That was super fun. There's 2 Ezra Millers at one point. That's in the trailers too. Again, super fun. I must admit, I came away from the whole thing, and we've talked on this podcast in the past about Ezra Miller and their issues with the law, and obviously the complications that's led to for Warner Brothers and DC and marketing this movie and everything else. But they were great. They are a very talented performer. I came away thinking, like, I really hope they get their act together because they're clearly talented. Like, without a doubt, led that movie with humor and emotion, and I thought they were great. And I was really, it just made me sort of hit me in the face of, and again, I had seen them in other roles and enjoyed, but like carried a movie and was good in it. And it was just, it just made it that much more heartbreaking that they are having all these other issues outside of being an actor that are interfering with their performances, because super talented, really good. Go ahead.
And I was going to say Michael Keaton was fun to see him back as Batman too, and sort of like not quite, sort of like a guest starring role in a sense, right? Like he had more lines in it than I anticipated, right? Yeah.
But anyway, all that to say, I would say you don't necessarily have to see it on the big screen. Obviously, sci-fi and superhero movies are really fun on the big screen. We saw it on IMAX, and it was good. It was really good. It was convoluted. There is a lot of like, where's this going? It is timey-wimey. It is, and again, I also get that people are feeling multiverse, alternate universe, whatever you want to call it, fatigue, given the amount that has happened in a lot of different sci-fi programming over the past few years. So again, I get some of those criticisms, and they're fair. However, it should be pointed out this movie is also several years old. It's been sitting in the can for a little while. But if you can get past that, it is totally worth a watch. It is right there in my mind with the new Suicide Squad movie. It's probably better than the new Suicide Squad, frankly. As far as DC movies over the past few years, it's probably the movie I've enjoyed most since Wonder Woman.
Yeah. Did Ben Affleck come back to play Batman for this, or are you saying it was been in the can that long?
So that is where I guess the story that I have here comes into play. So again, I will not spoil anything for Jaime or any of our listeners who haven't watched it yet. I imagine a lot of people who are fans of this stuff, like I'm sure you are, Jaime, will probably not bother going to see it in the movie theater, but will instead watch it when it pops up on Max or wherever it shows up down the road. But they apparently had filmed multiple different twists and turns endings for The Flash based on who was in charge, because this has been sitting around for a while. And so apparently they've gone back and filmed scenes, all kinds of cameos, all kinds of other scenes. If you have seen the movie, check the show notes. There's a really good story in there about just like A-list actors who they brought in to film these little scenes towards the end that they just ended up throwing on the cutting room floor because they just didn't fit in anymore with where all of this is going. So it's a pretty convoluted story. It was all over the place. Hollywood Reporter has the one that I've got linked here. Even the Washington Post wrote about it this week, talking about all these different bits and pieces. But it's pretty complicated. So all that to say, it definitely feels like this movie is a bit of a victim of DC movie fatigue, superhero fatigue, multiverse fatigue, and just overall movie theater fatigue. And I don't think that is a fair reflection of what is otherwise a pretty enjoyable couple hours with a bag of popcorn. So
yeah, and I don't know, without trying not to spoil it, it isn't really a multiverse story. It's a don't mess with the timeline story. It's timey-wimey.
It's a little bit more like Far From Home in that, you know, Peter Parker is the master of his own disaster, right?
Yeah. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's maybe that may be why people are kind of thinking it's been done. It's funny how, you know, something like this may have been even like, I don't know, time-wise, if it was like being produced at the same time as Far Away From Home or Far From Home.
I don't know.
You know what I mean? Like you see something in one show and then pop culture gets a hold of it, and then they think the originator of the idea is copying the more successful version of it, right? Or the more recent version. So
yeah, and this one again, if you read all of the sort of stuff that has come out this last week since it's been released, you know, they talk about the Michael Keaton appearance, and apparently that was supposed to be tied into the appearance he was supposed to have in the Batgirl movie that was also supposed to be in the theaters, and apparently all that got thrown out the windows, and then they had to refilm a bunch of that. So again, I think people who are not loving that sort of whole Zack Snyder Justice League era of DC movie making, you know, maybe this isn't for you, although it does kind of stand on its own okay. But yeah, I think it kind of is a victim of a lot of circumstance, and I don't think that is a fair reflection of the performances or of the film or of the movie entirely. So
yeah, the one thing too we talked about, you mentioned the fact that we saw this in IMAX. There are some scenes specifically with Batman's toys, right? Like in the Batcave and when the I don't know, Bat plane, whatever you want to call it, shows up. Some of those scenes like really benefit from being on a big screen, right? Because you get the sense of, you know, gravitas and the size of those devices, right? Yeah, you don't really get on the TV screen, you know.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's a fair rule to say that most science fiction and comic book related properties always look better on a big screen. But again, you can't blame people for one being selective, obviously, in where they choose to spend their money and their time, but also, just if they feel like they're being sold something that is not necessarily going to matter in the grand scheme of storytelling for a certain series in a year when they reboot everything, I guess I get it. I will tell you, Jaime, we did see in IMAX, they showed a whack load of trailers before the movie started, and one of them was the long version of the trailer for Blue Beetle. And that looked pretty neat on the big screen, I must admit.
Oh, I thought you were going to say that about Mission Impossible, Jonathan.
Good Lord. Yes. I gritted my teeth as they played the longest trailer ever for
it wasn't that long, honestly.
Mission Impossible 17 or whatever the hell it is.
Yeah, all Jonathan said is, I hope the chute doesn't open.
Yeah, at one point he's in the trailer at the very beginning, he's on a motorcycle and he's about to zip off this cliff, and I knew it was really Tom Cruise because really Tom Cruise does his own stunts, and I just kept thinking, oh, one of these days that chute's not going to open.
No, 100%. I mean, I think we talked about it on the show because it was one of my picks. It was the 10-minute making of that particular scene, you know, where he had to learn to do the biking and the jumping and the free, what do you call it? Free gliding, what do you call it when they base jumping. He had to learn to do that too, right? Yeah, because he's an idiot, right? Who else hangs off the side of a plane, you know, and with the camera rolling? Let's go back and do another take, Mr. Cruise. You know,
it's something around the spectacle of some of these scenes that, with the exception of Tom Cruise, when I see people doing stunts in movies nowadays, I'm like, oh, okay, cool. It's like CGI for most of it, right? It's, you know, the Tom Cruise doing his own stunts as much as he can get away with. I do appreciate from that aspect, because I saw through YouTube, because it recommends stuff, a James Bond Moonraker scene where, you know, they're like going out of the plane with, you know, without parachutes. Like, there's not enough parachutes for everybody, so Bond has to like go steal a parachute from a guy, you know, midair. And I'm like, well, yeah, they probably have, safety stuff and everything, but like they literally had to go do that, right? Like they couldn't CGI that. Sure, you can tell, oh, this part right here is the, it's not actually, was it Roger Moore? I can't remember, or Timothy Dalton? Yeah, Roger Moore. It's not actually him, but it's a real person doing that. It's a stunt person.
And it's two guys fighting over a parachute as they're falling through the sky, and a third guy's filming it, right?
Yeah. So it's like extra nuts, and how many jumps they had to do just to film this tiny 30-second scene. That's
I remember seeing I remember around the time that Raiders of the Lost Ark came out, they had there were many times interviewing the stuntman. The scene where Indiana is underneath the truck and he's hand over hand having himself moving himself to the back of the truck as the truck's whipping down the road, and the guy had a plate on his back to protect him, but that was a guy doing that, right? And then when he turns around and throws his whip and he's getting dragged by the truck, right? That, again, same stuntman. Now it's all CGI, like you said, but there was some guy who was just nuts enough to do that back in the day, right? It's kind of like that, was that Quentin Tarantino, the last movie, the How to Live or Die in Hollywood? That was the same kind of stuff, right? Because wasn't
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood? Yeah.
Yeah, Brad Pitt played the stuntman for Leonardo DiCaprio, right? Yeah, same sort of idea. Cool stuff. Anyway, I hopefully will see Tom Cruise jump off a cliff on a motorcycle in IMAX someday soon.
Only if he doesn't stick the landing do I ever want to see that on IMAX.
Well, and the sad part about it is Jonathan messaged me saying, "Hey, there's only one theater showing IMAX for this Flash movie, right?" And it was like a couple of days before it's going to be gone, right? So
I think it has the run of the IMAX theater for 6 or 7 days, and then it's bumped out for Mission Impossible and everything else. Yeah,
it's sad.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, is Mission Impossible coming out next?
I don't know if that's this week or next week. I can't remember.
Yeah, because I know Tom Cruise was complaining about the fact that he's getting kicked out by Oppenheimer.
Yeah, but that's not coming out till the 23rd of July, something like that. So yeah, it's a busy stretch over the next couple of weeks. All right, let's move on. I've got a couple of Sony Spider-Man related movie news. The movie that was announced a little while back, you two might recall, we talked about this one. So there was supposed to be a spin-off from Spider-Man that they had apparently announced of the character El Muerto, that is the luchador character that was appeared in Spider-Man, going to be played by Bad Bunny, and it has apparently been pulled off of the Sony movie release schedule. It was supposed to come out in January, and it has been completely and entirely removed. So there is no new release date. They have not said the fate of this. It's not clear if this is going to be pushed down the road. They have not made any announcements related to this. It is just off the schedule. It is quite possible this is a casualty, as we talked last week, of the different shifting that is happening because of the writers' strike that's happening, covering a lot of movies and television shows. But it is not happening for the time being when it was supposed to come out. So I personally was not. I've read the comics where El Muerto shows up. I wasn't dying for this one, so that's fine.
Yeah, I think for this kind of character, I think Sony putting this in theaters is a mistake. It really feels like it should be a series. If you're going to do that, right, you should do basically like The Punisher.
Yeah,
for the average person, right?
Yeah,
people would be like, have maybe tangential, like, hey, aunt and uncle, hey, third cousin, have you heard of this one? No, check it out, it's cool. Oh, okay, yeah, I'll sit and watch that on Netflix or Paramount Plus or HBO Max and stuff. Like, I feel like, yes, Sony is trying to put stuff into theaters and they're doing what they've got with what they have, but I'm like, this is a little far. That's a little hard one to do.
Well, and they're doing the use it or lose it philosophy, right? They're using their licensed characters so they don't have to return them to Marvel. So they've got this whole set of IP that isn't just Spider-Man, which of course has produced good quality material. They have produced good Spider-Man movies, and especially we just talked about the newest Into the Spider-Verse movie last week, which was amazing. So they've done good ones, but they've also done Morbius and Venom Let There Be Carnage, and the movie we're about to talk about next, which is Kraven the Hunter, which got a big trailer drop this week. And I think it's safe to lump this one in with those other movies. Do either of you have any strong feelings about the trailer for Kraven the Hunter?
Yeah, I think it's pretty much a hard pass for me.
Yeah.
What's the one you just mentioned? The
Morbius or Venom or
yeah, I haven't seen either of those two, right? And this I'd probably see those two before I see this one. I mean, part of it was, and I know it's part of the what do you call it? The story, the origin story of the character, the scene with the lion. But I just, as soon as I saw that, I'm like, nope.
Yeah, they definitely gave Kraven some abilities in this trailer that Kraven in the comic books has never possessed. So that was a bit of a departure. It's a strange thing that they're doing all these sort of anti-hero supporting Spider-Man characters. They're all characters that have at times been straight up villains, at time have been anti-heroes, and at time have been obviously at odds with Spider-Man throughout the comics history. I'm not sure I understand what they're trying to do other than just it's a tangential Spider-Man character. People will come and spend money. And to their credit, those Venom movies made a fair bit of money. They clearly there's some there for them. I thought the first one was okay. The second one was one of the funniest movies I've seen in the last few years, unintentionally, I hope. But I did find myself laughing hysterically at how bad it was. I haven't seen Morbius yet, but I promised myself I will at some point watch it because just for the unintentional comedy scale, I imagine it's off the charts. I don't understand. Like, is the goal to create all these characters and then eventually put them in conflict with Spider-Man so that you actually know who they are and therefore there's more gravitas? I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do in this movie. Like, in the trailer, it looks like, okay, so Kraven is played by Aaron Taylor Johnson, who I love. I think he's great performer. I loved him in almost everything I've seen him in. I think he's terrific.
Bullet Train.
He's fantastic in Bullet Train. He's fantastic in Kick-Ass. He's been in lots of stuff, and he's great. In the movie, it seems like, he's playing, young Victor Kravinoff, who is, apparently his dad is a mobster and something bad happens and he ends up having to go and sort of exact revenge on him at some point or something. But I just found myself thinking, so he, in the comics, is a bad guy. Here, they're setting him up to be sort of a dark good guy, an anti-hero kind of, a Punisher-y kind of character. I don't understand why they're doing this. Like, to me, Kraven would be an amazing character to do in a Spider-Man movie because the whole concept is just Kraven is trying to prove that he's superior to Spider-Man. He can catch and kill anything because he's so powerful, and he basically sets his sight on Spider-Man in the comic books. That's a great dichotomy to explore. I don't understand why they want to do an entire story just around him where apparently he's in conflict with his dad and expect me or other people to care.
Mm-hmm.
Jaime, you must have feelings about this.
It's a weird one because I think if you look at it from the lens of, hey, this is trying to be a cinematic universe kind of thing, they're setting up the Rhino, another Spider-Man villain, as well. Feels really weird because it feels a little meh when it comes to a superhero. It's not kind of as weird and cool as a Venom conceptually. Even Morbius has more of that. This is a little bit more down to earth in some respects for like a superhero thing. So if you look at it instead as like, okay, what if this didn't have the tie-in to Kraven the Hunter, and this was, Raven the Hunter, and it's kind of, more or less John Wick in the Serengeti, right? Like, then I feel like, oh, okay, there's a movie I might watch on Amazon Prime or something, right? And it feels a little bit more appropriate for that. So this one just feels like it's in a weird spot for me. I'm like, I probably will watch this. Not in the theaters. I won't immediately watch it when it becomes available on digital. I will find a Sunday afternoon unless Paw Patrol 3 comes out to keep me entertained while I'm doing the laundry or washing the dishes, right? Like this is that sort of level of thing that I think is my take. I didn't think it was bad. I just felt like, it goes towards the end of the queue.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. When you break it down like that, Jaime, if you are going with like Raven the Hunter, it feels exactly the way you're describing. It feels like something you'd flip on Netflix and sort of partly pay attention to while you're doing something else. But not a cinematic movie that probably cost over $100 million and, expects to find legroom in the theaters. It's amazing that the same studio that greenlights things like the Miles Morales Spider-Man animated pictures makes these. It just is baffling.
Right, me. Yeah, this is an interesting story, and I also heard some interesting things about the Oppenheimer movie too. So for people who have seen it already, this new Black Mirror episode is making. Well, they're saying here making subscribers cancel their accounts. I don't know if that's the case, but apparently this episode on Black Mirror which I haven't seen because I haven't got my Netflix working right now, is quite disturbing, and people are like, leaving the episode going, what was that? Right. So I don't know. I don't know if you guys have seen the episode they're talking about.
I was going to watch it last night. I fired it up and I started the first 30 seconds and then thought, you know what? I'm not going to watch this before bed. I'll watch it later in the week. I mean, again, the ingredients look amazing. It's Annie Murphy from Schitt's Creek, the great comedic actor, who you really liked her in, what was the name of the AMC series she was
Kevin
in?
Can F Himself. Yeah.
Yeah, and then she's got a history of shows that skirt the expletive lines, but she's great. And everything I've seen her in, I really enjoy her. And then Salma Hayek is in the episode as well. And so it really seems like it's a good ingredients for a good episode. But I haven't had a chance to sit down and actually watch it yet. We'll watch it this weekend. We'll decide if it's scarring or not.
Well, apparently the just I read something earlier that now why am I drawing a blank on the name of the guy who's doing the movie, who made the movie, famous director Michael? No, Oppenheimer.
Oh, Christopher Nolan.
Yeah, Christopher Nolan. Yeah, he was saying that some people are walking out of that movie changed, like disturbed.
I mean, it seems like it's going to take a pretty grim look at the creation and existence of nuclear weapons, which I hope scare the pants off people. It's supposed to. It's potentially, annihilation level threat to humanity. I hope people come out scared. I hope they call their congressperson or senator or think about it when they're at the ballot box next year. Yeah, well, even Oppenheimer flash into your heads just for a moment, Jaime. I'm going to put this on you as our American in the crowd here. Just think about how scary that concept is, and then remember that for 4 years, Donald J. Trump had access to those.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The good thing is it's not just like a button you push. There's like other people that have to collude, which is the skinniest little, safety net that you can imagine, but it is a safety net.
Well, thank God they have a prime directive, which leads us into this week's episode of Star Trek Strange New Worlds, Season 2, Episode 2, Ad Astra per Aspera.
Which
means to the stars through hardship, according to Una.
Latin's a bit of a bugger to translate. It's either hardship or difficulty, depending on your interpretation of Latin.
Yes, and we can start with our pitches. My pitch is, hope you have a lady judge. That always seems to work out pretty well. Not always, though, but yeah. And what do you got for your pitch, John?
I had, they want the truth. Starfleet can't handle the truth.
How about you, Jaime?
Better Call Nero.
Yeah. Better Call Nero.
Yeah.
Good one. Well, that's probably the better one. Yeah, for sure. So in case you haven't seen it, this is the, I guess the conclusion to the cliffhanger from last series where Una gets arrested at the end of the series for being an augment, which apparently is illegal in the Federation. And she's joined Starfleet, risen through the ranks, and then somehow it's outed that she is in fact an augment and therefore shouldn't have even been in Starfleet. And so this is the court-martial case where she's up against it and Pike's captain girlfriend is the prosecutor, so that's another set of tension for our man Pike, right? And he risks life and limb to go and find a really good Illyrian litigator to defend, and convinces her to defend Una, right? That's the gist of the show.
Yep, that's pretty much it.
Yep, and that's it. It was all over. They went home.
It was a legal drama, right? Like for best pew pew pew, I wrote the legal zingers, I guess, because there wasn't really traditional pew pew pews in this one.
Well, my best pew pew was the Vulcan blinking contest.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And then Nira versus April, and then Nira versus everybody.
Yeah, I mean, this was a crackling episode from the dialogue perspective. This is one of the best written episodes I think we've seen of New Trek.
Mm-hmm.
Really great dialogue and some amazing delivery from the different performers in this one. But there was a couple in there that really were absolute zingers. We'll get into some of our quotes, but I had the Pike versus Battelle, where Pike is sort of fuming that he's not going to be called to the stand, and his ex-girlfriend / prosecutor for the case basically walks him down like, well, this is what it would be like, and just sort of skewers him there in the bar, and it was pretty savage, but she was bang on. Yeah, I thought that was good.
That happened anyway, right?
Well, I mean, yeah, what she predicted would happen if he got too close to the case is exactly what plays out, which is that the Starfleet prosecutor will eventually come after him and try and make things even worse for Una by making it worse for him. What else have we got category-wise here? Let's see. Easter egg hunt. I had a couple. So the bell that they ring to start the trials, the same one that they used to ring at the beginning of the menagerie.
Mm-hmm. Do you think it was the same bell or just?
I don't think it's the same bell. It was the exact same sound.
Ding, ding.
I didn't even notice the bell, and because I think I was taking a note, but I heard it and I was like, "Oh, that's the same bell."
Yeah, for sure.
And the one that I thought was like the best one was just they, in the end, if you haven't seen this, I don't know why you're listening to us, but in the end, they free Una because she basically is granted asylum by this tribunal, as opposed to them actually rewriting this law. So the law is still in the books about genetic manipulation. They didn't wipe that off the books. And that's important because we know that by the time we get into 100 years later, that this exact law will come up around Dr. Bashir in DS9, right?
Oh, really? In what way?
Well, he was genetically manipulated by his parents too.
Oh, was he? Oh,
right.
He gets raked over the coals too, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that they could have got themselves into a real crosswire jam. As a matter of fact, as it was happening, I was like, how are they going to get out of this one? Because they were headed down a path to do this. And I was thinking, they can't repeal this law unless they then put in another law, which makes no sense, because it wouldn't work, because we know that this case comes back around by the time we get to DS9. But I thought the way they solved it was actually pretty elegant, in that they basically said, oh no, we couldn't do it that way because.
Yeah. So in the case of Bashir, like how does his case get overturned?
I'm trying to remember the details. Jaime, do you remember that episode?
Does he run away with Garrick or what?
It was it's kind of a weird spot, because like this episode for Una was like, oh, she's like practicing genetic engineering. I'm like, well, no, her parents did, right? Because it happened. It was something they did to her. And the same thing with Bashir. It was something his parents did to him. The thing they get tripped up on is, both of those individuals knowingly lied on their applications, which is like real weird and ticky-tack, but like technically true. The way that Bashir's goes is like, oh, his father takes all the heat, and his father goes to New Zealand for prison in exchange for letting Bashir and you saved the universe a couple times, like, oh, all right, we'll let you get away with this time, right? It was one of those sort of grudging sort of compromises.
Yeah, I'm looking it up now, and I'm like, yep, it's coming back now. Yeah, it's the Dr. Bashir, I presume, episode, right? The one where he's going to be turned into the medical hologram, and then he's, as that's happening, they sort of uncover this sort of secret from his past, and it all comes out. And yeah.
It's interesting that, like when you think about it, that this episode kind of goes at and points out that Starfleet, for all their, better than everybody else sort of platitudes, right, has these ingrained bad laws, essentially. Like, we run across it with Picard with the synthetic humans. Bashir here you mentioned, the whole Vulcan, Spock being half Vulcan, half Earthling. He's not welcome in either society. It seems like, it's funny that, I get it that Star Trek came out of the 60s, so that was like a natural sort of thing that just happened, but yeah, it's interesting that for all that Star Trek is meant to be this scientific, logical, but emotional, joyride for all of us. There's a lot of these sort of prejudices and biases built in, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And they're calling themselves on their own BS, right?
Yeah, I found myself watching this one. Of course, we always talk about the legacy of Trek. This is obviously a Trek trope as well. The ethical debate in the guise of a court case. This has certainly come up before. Is Data sentient? Does he have rights? The captain's going to get court-martialed, but they made the right decision in the end, and it's okay.
Yeah, Pike and Spock
for sure. So they've certainly, this is well worn over the 60 years of Star Trek. But that being said, this was a banger of an episode. It was great. Like this is the best of Trek. Crackling dialogue, killer performances, something that really feels like it's bringing the whole crew together. You really felt that that we're in this together collegial kind of thing that's going on with the whole crew sort of watching the case and trying to do what they can. The angst that La'an feels, just this was great. And I wanted to shout out the actress who played the defense attorney, whose name I wrote down here as
that lady from that show.
That lady from the show. Counselor Nira Kutal was the character name. Yetid Badaki, who I knew only from seeing a bit of the American Gods series on Amazon Prime. She was on that. She was great, and man, when we get to the quotes, like she dominated there. Now again, great dialogue, great writing, but she killed it. She was really, really, really good in this episode. So my big question for this episode was, does Trek get much better than this? Like this is to me so far like one of the high water marks for new Trek from sort of post Discovery Trek. This was great.
Well, yeah, but Star Trek's been like this, like you mentioned, like in the 68 series, there was, these kind of court-martial drama things,
Well, and mixed in with that, the episode where there's the two characters, the black and white, the white and black, again, a commentary on racism and stuff like that.
Can't you tell he's different? Yeah, exactly.
Like this smacked of that and everything else. It's an ethical commentary. It's a moral commentary. It's kind of a commentary on some of the things that are happening in the United States right now, that are, the things that divide and separate versus bring together. Again, it's hard to do that and still make an entertaining product. It's hard to do that, to get up on that soapbox. And they kind of take a little bit of the piss out of themselves in this episode by Una at one point basically says to Nira, you just wanted the soapbox, which is, something that the writers of Star Trek get accused of and the producers of Star Trek get accused of from time to time. Mm-hmm. But man, they nailed it. Like it could have been way too much, way too over the top, but it was a very satisfying and thoughtful and well-performed narrative that served the characters well. It served Star Trek well. It served the legacy well. And it didn't mess up the timeline. Again, this being a prequel show, I think this is one of the strongest things that Star Trek's done. And yet it is perilous. They're still in the past. They can mess things up, but they didn't.
They actually ended up patching up some stuff too. So my Easter egg, or at least one of them, was that General Order 1 is now referred to as the Prime Directive. Right?
Yes.
She tied it together of like this weird sort of oddity of how it sort of seemingly changes, but it's like, no, actually, I guess they gave it a nickname and it kind of stuck around.
So we
I also
talked
thought
about
the dress uniforms looked good. I liked
Always
seeing
look good.
all the different colors too. You had medical, engineering, security, and science.
And she had that big brooch thing that Kirk had when he was during the court martials, right?
Yeah, I think it's supposed to be like a metal cluster.
Yeah, perhaps. Yeah. To show she's like, been around the block and
Well, 25
accolade.
years service in Starfleet, you got to think you've earned a couple of commendations. Like she is a veteran.
I like the part at the end where she's back on the Enterprise. Spoilers, but she's back on the Enterprise, and Pike walks up to her and just hugs her.
Yeah.
And she's like, "What? Why is this strange human hugging me?"
We talked about some of the quotes, so I've got a couple here. I don't know if you guys have a bunch more, but the Nira to to Pike. I knew you were stubborn. I just didn't think you were stupid. I thought was a great one. And again, her lines were crackling. Her performance was so good. Congratulations, you discovered empathy. Let me know when the rest of your Federation catches up. Are you being funny? You were never funny. That's from Nira to Una. My favorite probably from this whole episode is, I regret that you had to witness that outburst from Spock when he just stands up and walks away from the Vulcan Admiral.
Oh,
Yeah,
that was the
down as
outburst.
well.
Okay, I didn't.
That was
notice
the outburst. Yes,
That was
I'm
after
sorry
the
you had to see
staring
that
contest
outburst.
that you mentioned.
Yeah. Well, because what's her name?
Erica and Mabenga are making fun of it, right?
Yeah, she's like doing the fake dialogue about how they're getting along so well, and he's like, "Are you looking at the same conversation I'm looking at?"
Yeah, no, and Mabenga again, he's always crushed it. That guy's great. And the line where he basically says, they keep it a lot close to the vest, but you can read their body language. Those two hate each other.
Yeah, yeah. And then Una, what's her name?
Nira.
I'm looking right at no. La'an says, "Why do I feel like I've been hit by a shuttle?"
Yeah.
Which is a reference only a Star Trek fan would get, right?
Yep. And the last one was just excellent writing on top of the soapbox. If a law is not just, then I ask, how are we to trust those who created the law to serve justice? I want that one spray painted on the steps of the U.S. House of Representatives, please.
Yes.
And several state houses in the United States right now, please.
Yeah.
And now that I'm off my soapbox, how about we talk about episode 1 of Secret Invasion?
Ooh, the resurrection.
Jaime,
Yeah.
what's your pitch?
Nick Fury is too old for this shift.
Well, we went the same direction. I had the Skrulls want to take over Earth. Can Nick Fury stop them, or is he getting too old for this? Expletive deleted.
Yeah, I didn't have a pitch for this one.
Yeah.
Except that they sure can go through some co-stars
Yeah.
or special guests.
Definitely that one. So proceed at your own caution, listeners. If you haven't seen Secret Invasion episode 1, you're definitely going to want to skip ahead for a bit because we're going to talk all about it. And there are some major spoilers, including a very surprising ending to this episode.
2 surprising endings, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, it definitely sets the stage for what could be an interesting series. I must admit, I enjoyed this episode, but I didn't love it. It was a little slow. Fury was obviously not at his best. So I always find these kinds of shows where it's the old cowboy getting back on the horse kind of thing a little bit tedious because you want to see the cowboy on the horse, and I know you got to earn it, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, we only got 6 episodes. Please don't burn too many episodes with that.
Yeah. Oh, there's only 6 episodes to this?
6. It'll be over before July. Yeah. So it's, if you're going to spend just 6 hours, and again, to be fair, it was a full 55-minute episode. It wasn't like a cheapy little, Mandalorian 30-minute episode or anything, but it was, a whole 1/6 of this series has gone by, and we got kind of the lamest version of Nick Fury we've ever gotten in any series so far. So that knocked it down just a bit for me. But that being said, it definitely was a good stage setter, and like, man, what a cast in this thing. Like,
Yeah.
we'll just bring in 2-time Academy Award winner to play this like small role in the first episode. I'm sure it's going to pay off with more for Olivia Colman, but they're definitely trotting them out there. And of course we get Martin Freeman shows up, and we get Kobe Smulders, and we get all these different little things. And of course we've got Emilia Clarke showing up in there. Yeah, so I mean this is a bit of a murderer's row of talent in here as well. So nothing to sneeze at there.
And Ben Mendelsohn, he's the guy from Rogue One, right?
Yep. Very memorably in Rogue One. And, of course, Captain Marvel, right?
Yeah, and then Dermot Mulroney as president, I think, right? Yeah,
and we even got a very brief glimpse of Don Cheadle back as Rhodey, although I personally don't think that's Rhodey. I think that's somebody else. But...
Oh, really?
You'll see it in my notes. My notes down below there, I put down Rhodey, fake, and president.
Okay, so, but the Martin Freeman character, Agent Everett Ross, has that been in Marvel Universe before, or this was just his first time on this show?
Well, Ross was in Black Panther, and then he was in Black Panther 2,
right?
Oh,
yes, so that was the same guy. Okay, cool.
Yeah, same character, but it was funny because when the episode starts and he's supposed to be working for the CIA, it didn't make any sense because at the end of Black Panther, that's not where he's at. So it already seemed a little incongruous, and then very quickly you find out that that's actually a Skrull in disguise, and you're like, okay, that makes perfect sense then, because Ross is clearly doing his own thing and not doing this, which makes sense.
Well, other than the dude in the chase scene where Nick Fury's chasing the one Skrull through the crowd, they seem to imply that they had to capture the person they were copying, right? In the middle scene there, where they had the Borg sleeping units.
Yeah, and we've seen those before. We saw those in Captain Marvel.
Oh, did we? Okay.
Yeah. It's a bit of a convenience for plot purposes. So in the comic books, Skrulls, they do not need to have their person prisoner.
They just look at you and
they just they can just take over. But I guess what that thing is supposed to do in this case is supposed to allow them access to their memories, so they actually can know about them and impersonate them better and whatever else. It's a good little MacGuffin too, because it's their way of saying if you're captured and impersonated, you're not dead. So there will probably, I'm sure, at some point be a reveal, maybe perhaps War Machine, that is not a character, or the character will die, and then they'll be like, oh my god, did they kill Rhodey? Well, now we know that they're not necessarily killing all the people that they impersonate. In the comic books, it certainly does come up that they have killed a few people to replace them. So
right, okay, so Martin Freeman could come back.
Yeah, or I mean, again, in this case, it probably is just that was never meant to be him, and we're just supposed to assume that was just somebody using a convenient face.
Right. Yes. No. I get it. Yeah.
So
that it was a Skrull the whole time.
Yeah. The pew 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 for me, again, I think that you guys might have a different one. I thought the Red Square scare I thought was really good, where it's they're trying to chase the people, they've got dirty bombs, they're trying to catch them, you're trying to figure out who's got who, and of course that's heightened by the fact that these people can change their shape and their faces and stuff like that. So I thought that was very effectively done between the edits and the sort of quick cuts and stuff like that. I thought that was really well shot and well filmed, as well. Obviously it's a great action scene when you're trying to figure out and stop the bomb before it goes off. And then of course the big twist, which we talked about, that comes out of that, which is that Gravik, the main bad guy of the evil forces of the Skrulls, impersonates Fury and appears to kill Maria Hill.
Mm-hmm. Appears to kill?
Well, I'm going to say yes, because it seems like it was making the rounds on the entertainment stuff this morning that was the death of. But yeah, I mean, it smacked a little of fridging. I mean, again, I get that, Hill has had a good run, that Kobe Smulders has had a good run. So it's not like they just created that character to motivate the hero, which is fridging. But in this case, it's the sort of mini fridge for this series, right? Now this got personal. Before it was, I got to come back and I got to do this because I've been friends with the Skrulls and Talos needs my help and I need to prevent this invasion from sparking World War III. But now it got personal because they killed his best friend.
Mm-hmm.
So again, not a full-sized fridge, not like a giant two-door fridge, but like a mini fridge. We'll call it a mini fridge.
Okay.
Yeah, I had that as my big question. Is this the end of Agent Hill? I agree with you that she probably is dead here for the series. But it is the MCU, and there is precedence from Agent Coulson.
Yep.
So
I was going to say they can Coulson her, right?
yeah,
She's got to go to Tahiti. Oh, clearly I'm the only one to watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Never mind.
it's been so long I didn't see the whole series, but I do remember getting far enough to see that. I think.
Yeah. Then he goes to Tahiti.
Tahiti, yeah.
Hey, where have you been? I was in Tahiti.
I was in Tahiti. It's lovely there this time of year.
Yes.
Easter eggs, I had just a couple things. So we learned that Talos is 136 human years old, which is equivalent to about 40 in Skrull, which is interesting. So by extrapolation, yeah, like they live to well past 250 years, 300 years old, which is neat. The name Falsworth. So when we are introduced to Olivia Colman's character Sonia Falsworth, who we learn as the episode goes on is a big muckety muck with MI6. The name Falsworth tweaked my ear because Falsworth in the comic books is the name of a character named Union Jack. Union Jack is a superhero based out of the UK. This could be simply coincidence that they chose a name that might perk up the ears of nerds like me, or there might be more to play in that. I sincerely doubt they're going to bring Union Jack into this, but there may be a reference to her having a brother or a cousin or whatever at some point that, again, will just sort of cement a nice little nugget there for nerds like me who read a lot of comic books.
For me, my Easter egg is maybe a non-traditional one. So the heart and soul of the Skrull sort of battle is between what's the dude's name? Is it Talos?
Talos, yeah.
Yeah, Talos and his daughter Gaia.
Yeah.
And it's kind of interesting that in Greek mythology you have Gaia, the personification of the earth, given that the Skrulls who have been displaced and are looking for a home have one here potentially on Earth is the conflict. So I don't know if this character originates from the comics and if it was intended to have that, but I was like, wow, that's an interesting coincidence if it's not intentional.
Yeah, there is a similar character in the comic books, yes. That is as far as I will take that conversation. Yeah, that's an interesting observation. Yeah, interesting. I sort of wrote her name down phonetically as they had in the subtitles and didn't really make that connection. So that's actually really neat. I did put it in my Easter eggs, but I suppose it is if you sort of really don't know your geography. But I really liked when the episode begins in Moscow and it's centered back in Moscow. That's where they end up. And then at one point they say 312 miles south. For those of you that know your geography, 312 miles south of Moscow is Chernobyl, which was the site of the world's worst ever nuclear reactor meltdown. Yeah. And so that's why they're there. They don't explicitly say that's where they are, but they do show the smokestacks that are crumbling, and they obviously show the town, which is in a dire state. And they make a point of saying that the Skrulls have a huge immunity to radiation. So that's why they set up there, because the humans won't bother them there, and they can hang out there. I thought that was actually very clever bit of writing. What do you got for? Do you have any big questions, Jaime?
No big questions beyond what I had said there around Agent Hill. I mean, I guess there is the meta question of like who is and isn't a Skrull. It gets, this opens opportunities to get real nuts on even stuff we've already seen that was secretly a Skrull in disguise kind of thing.
Yeah, for sure.
So I don't have any there. The quotes that I'm trying to remember here that sort of stuck out. One was the repetition of home in my own skin. So being who I am, which is kind of weirdly, coincidentally timely with the topic of the Illyrians in this week's Strange New Worlds episode. So kind of interesting there of like not being afraid to be your real self out in public is interesting. And then sort of more in line with less coincidentally interesting because it's not exactly the same week, but it is the same year as what happened in Star Trek Picard Season 3 of take his face, now take his mind. It's very similar to like the Dominion, ex-Dominion terrorist type folks doing kind of similar stuff that the Skrulls are doing here.
Yeah, good ones. Yeah, I pictured a couple. So my big question was how much can Fury trust Talos? That sort of stems from the fact that he's very torn. He's conflicted between fighting his own people and, having lived on Earth and his daughter's there and his wife died and all that stuff. But particularly when he's losing the fight against Petrushkin and Fury kills him, he seems very, very upset at the death of the Skrull. And it makes me wonder if that will come to a head as this series continues, if Fury and Talos can still be on the same side when Fury's agenda, especially in the wake of Hill's death, is going to be probably gunning for blood, and Talos looks like what he's trying to do is find a way to resolve this without killing 500 Skrulls.
Yeah, well, it seems like there's probably a limited number of them, right? So he just, and plus they're his people. He doesn't want them.
On the quote front, I had from Talos to Fury once he comes down from Saber. He says, "You're going for a long walk in Moscow at night," which I think should be the question anybody's ever always asked a second they decide to walk out a door in Moscow once it's gotten dark. Mm-hmm. I know a bunch of good-looking Skrulls, and you ain't one of them. From Fury to Talos, that was pretty funny. And then the best part of Samuel L. Jackson's the most Fury he is in this episode is when they're interrogating the Petrushkin character, and he says, "We're going to go ahead and call that a lie. Everybody gets one, nobody gets two." And then when guy lies the second time, he goes, "Boom goes the dynamite. There's lie number 2." Again, classic Sam Jackson deliveries. I cannot do it justice, but really great. I did tag on here at the bottom of this episode. I don't know if either of you read these stories. I had initially put one in from the Washington Post. They covered this. I put in the Entertainment Weekly one because you don't need any kind of subscription to read it. So
the thing about the titles?
The title screen. That definitely came out today in a bunch of different outlets, that the title screens for Secret Invasion were apparently created using AI. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people were very critical of the decision to have an AI-generated intro for this series, given obviously the sensitivity of what's going on during the writer's strike and this what they perceive to be an attack on artistic integrity. And so there was a lot of people on social media today, and definitely some articles being written that this is something that people were generally against. Some people were like, well, it was pretty funky and interesting, but also Marvel has explicitly not commented on this. People are, taking umbrage. There was definitely a few people commenting who were affiliated with the project who basically said, I had nothing to do with the intro. However, I'm very disappointed they've decided to do this. It's essentially, intellectual plagiarism. So I definitely wanted to get your take on this, Tim, as an artist, what your thought is on an AI-generated piece of content like this, especially as a slippery slope.
I don't know. I now have to go back and watch it because I didn't know about it till after we started recording. But I don't know. I'm not opposed to it. I think it's just another. It's like Jar Jar Binks. It's like a fully animated character in Star Wars. What are you going to do?
That was
right?
A performance. That was a real person.
I understand that. I understand that. Like I said, you got to give me a chance to go back and watch it. I can't really comment on something I don't remember. I mean, to be honest with you, I really wasn't paying attention. I usually skip past the titles, but I didn't notice whether it was anything funky about it. And if it looked like something a human being could have done, then why didn't a human being do it? If it was like funky and something that couldn't have been done by anything but an AI, then that's a different story, right? And you know how I feel about the whole AI thing and misappropriating people's work without permission, blah blah blah. So.
One of the things
resistance is futile. You will be assimilated.
I guess. One of the things they pulled off social media for the Polygon article is about, basically saying it almost feels like a shot fired across the bow of all the artists and writers who are on strike right now, saying, hey.
Again, I don't think this wasn't produced last week or it wasn't produced in the last month, right? So Are you saying they could have had time to go back and redo it because of the fact that the strike's happening now, or?
It just seems interesting that no one has really said anything about it. Obviously, Marvel, Disney, etc. are extremely serious about their NDAs, so obviously people involved in the project couldn't necessarily comment on this before it made the light of day. However, it's surprising that it made it all the way to publication before this sort of came to light. You'd think at somewhere along the line, I mean, to produce a show like this one, there had to be visual effects artists to create the effect of the scrolls transforming back and forth. Some of the other visual effects for the episode, there must have been many artists who worked on this. And those were human artists, and they got paid for their work, as you should. I really do wonder what those people who worked on this project as artists feel about the idea that they basically used a piece of programming to do this piece of art. Jaime, what's your take on all this?
I sort of benefited, some inside baseball here for this show is that I was a bit delayed in watching the episode. So I actually benefited from seeing your note here of like, oh, so there's controversy about the titles. I paid a little bit more attention to them. And from a aesthetic standpoint, I liked what I saw because it was kind of eerie and a little slightly off kilter, which sort of fits with the themes of you don't know who's actually a scroll and who's not. There's something a little odd, a little off about these people. So I liked that. I think the visuals were pretty sort of interesting. They looked a lot like, vaguely Ralph McQuarrie-esque kind of art style. It looked a little vaguely, hand painted sort of style, even though it seems to be digital. I don't know if some of this stuff with AI will cross a line. Obviously, I don't want people put out of jobs, but I do wonder if this will augment and supplement things. I'm going to make a very tortured comparison to just about everything that a modern Pixar movie would use, right? Where, when you had the original Toy Story, like that was all like straight up hand animated. But nowadays, when you look at the incredible textures work and environmental work, like if you wanted to be a real jerk about it, you'd be like, they practically didn't animate anything at all. The computer program decided what that fire effect should do or what that water should do. Like you just kind of gave it some parameters and tweaked, right? Like that's very dismissive. It's like, well, no, they're using the computer to give variations, and they're guiding it more like a creative director or art director. Yeah, they're not in there brushing every stroke, but they're guiding the tool that is assisting the human. That's where I'd like to see this go, like AI assisting the human, not replacing the job of the human.
That's an interesting way to approach it, and it does make me think. So if I was a writer, which I suppose in a way I am, if I was a writer and I decided I had a great idea for a graphic novel, but I don't have any art skills, if I described to an AI artist, an AI art tool, hey, this is what I envision. I envision this, this is in the room, this has this color, this shade, whatever, and I'm describing what I envision as the writer. Am I also then the artist? Or is that just, again, where's the ethical line on, am I the artist if I've created it using my words to describe pictures that have then been brought to life by AI?
It's a tough philosophical question, because if I want to be, again, I'm saying this facetiously to try to spur some discussion here and some thoughts. If I wanted to be a jerk about this stuff and be like, well, let's look at the Academy Awards. People say, wow, the best director, that was their picture. I'm like, no, it wasn't. They basically didn't do anything. They didn't write it. They didn't film it. Somebody else was running the camera, most likely, right? They didn't stand in front and act. They didn't do the editing. They didn't do the sound design. And yet we accept that, like, this is a Tim Burton movie. This is a Wes Anderson film. So I think there is a place for, you may not have touched personally every little piece of this, but it was guided by your vision. And I think we've accepted that, and I feel like that would be okay in the example you just brought of, like, I don't have, visual arts, artistic skills, but I'm a writer, and I can use the AI to build a graphic novel, which would normally be out of your reach. You would have to pay some other person to assist you with that.
But then am I bypassing the artist part of the process? It's really interesting. It opens up a lot of interesting philosophical discussions about what art is and how it's created and the collaborative process. When we talk about films being a collaborative process, often graphic novels are a collaborative process too. Most of the comic books that are mainstream, it's not like one person does all the writing and all the art and all the coloring, the lettering, editing, all the different tasks. That's usually is 6-7 different people. So yeah, it's a fascinating sort of thing to explore, and I imagine we're going to probably see that come up in a few places. And I wonder, is this where the ball is going? Is this sort of inevitability as far as technology, or is this?
Well, here's the question I have: is are we saying that augmented humans aren't allowed to make movie titles anymore? Because I while you guys were talking, I just watched it again with the sound off. But and yeah, it looks like a hand drawn animated piece. That's kind of interesting. But the thing about it is like what we call AI today, and Jaime and I can both attest to this, is not pure AI. It is what's called prompt-based computing, right? Where somebody like you, Jonathan, is directing the intelligence, if you want to call it, or the system to create scenes that evoke this, right? They're saying, you might get something and you go back in and correct the system by giving it another prompt to work on. Because, I mean, there's images in there that look like Samuel Jackson. There are images that look like scrolls. There are images that look like two hands shaking, one's different colored and look like an alien kind of thing. And then there's like, the Tower of London and cityscapes and things like that. Like these aren't, they're not like newly imagined, things. It's art that's based on other stuff. And unfortunately, artists throughout history have been replicating the world through their eye and through their hand, right? I mean, is Data not allowed to paint a painting? I mean, if I remember correctly, my, TNG, he does actually do that at some point, right? So it's hard to say. I mean, like, yeah, I think to answer your question, yeah, this could be part of the future going on, and that we'll see more and more of this kind of thing. And, like Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and all that kind of stuff, once the genie's out of the bottle, you really can't control it. I mean, like we can protest all we like about it, but we're going to see more and more of this stuff, especially after people see this title scene, right? In one way, Disney and Marvel have legitimized the use of this by putting this into like a major show, right? So, I'm sure we're going to see movie titles going forward, and at the film festivals and so on and so forth. And one day we're going to see a movie that's completely AI generated, like not a single human being actor in it, right? But somebody's going to have to write the story. Somebody's going to have to, unless it's an AI writing the story with prompts, what we call an AI, but they're not really artificial intelligence, right? I mean,
yeah, the large language model that power this. I do wonder, going down the comic book route that Jonathan was talking about, like, will this lead to fewer, great collaborations of the, I'm an artist, I can draw, I can't write. Yeah. I'm a writer, I can write, I can't draw. Let's team up and make something great. Versus like, hey, I can't do one half. All right, thanks AI, you're helping me fill in the other half, and now I have no reason to reach out, no incentive to reach out to somebody else. We don't lose the collaborative nature there.
Yeah, there's also another side of this too. And as I've worked on computers and done graphics on computers, and used Photoshop over the years, I'm a painter, I'm a sculptor. I can paint, I can draw, I can, as Jonathan can attest, I can do all this stuff in my own style, right? Admittedly, I'm not going to say I'm like Leonardo or whatever. I'm not planning to copy them at all, but or even like I've looked at comic books over the years and seen how they're put together. I understand how they go together. I've seen things like, the Spider-Man cross universe kind of movies and stuff like that. And at some point, as an artist, I say to myself, why should I bother painting? What's the point, right? Which is unfortunate, because I want to paint, I want to draw, but the technology has gotten so good. There are so many digital artists out there with iPads and pencils and using Procreate or Photoshop, and they're doing amazing stuff. And I look at that and I kind of go, well, do I want to do that or not? Right. So I express my own art in my own way, but it does get to the point where you're kind of like, what is the actual point? Like, why would, like, it takes a lot of effort to go to put together a studio and pull out canvases and paint. I used to take up a lot of space when I was doing that, right? I don't have that kind of space anymore, right? So, and I don't want to go off and rent a studio just for the sake of having more space. But so as I compete, like, this is just another competition in terms of my, desire to be an artist, right? It's unfortunate. But by the same token, I realize that you're also talking about the people who get paid to do this as their living, because that's what they've chosen as their income stream, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you're a digital artist right now, I imagine you're feeling just a little nervous.
Yeah. But by the same token, though, so are computer engineers, because I think that the questions that come out, like, a Swift an iOS app can be written by an AI, like this. I'm sure. I mean, I've both seen stories for this over the last six months or a year. And, we're not going to we don't need to hire engineers anymore to write our code because we'll just get an AI to do it for us. And the reality is it's not quite there yet, and yet, as I just mentioned before about the writer prompting the system, I think we still need to have people directing the systems. I mean, Skynet may be coming for all we know. Like, it may get to the point. I think I heard something on, I think it was on Spark. They were talking to somebody about AI, and there is a potential that the AIs could eventually take over and get rid of the humans, right? Or I'm just doing AIs with air quotes, so not really artificial intelligences, but that could be the future of this planet for all we know.
And on that note, let's move to our watch list.
I was going to say, that's a great prompt, Tim, for me to say if Skynet is out there listening. Yeah. I, for one, welcome our AI overlords. And if you're looking to, quote, unquote, collaborate with someone, I can jump in to help you.
If you need somebody to give you some prompts every now and then, Jaime is available. You can find him on Twitter at
collaborator with the hair.
Yeah. So on my watch list, I've got I don't know if I mentioned this before, but Triangle of Sadness. Let me say this about there's a couple of things I can say about it. One is, first, you should watch it. It's on Amazon Prime, and it's interesting because it's not your typical Hollywood, story or Marvel or whatever. It's Swedish, so it's got a bit of an IKEA twist to it. Not really an IKEA twist, but it's got a twist. It's kind of like the Meaning of Life scene with the wafer, where he kind of says, you better get a bucket, if you know what I'm saying. It's a little bit like Castaway. It's a little bit Lord of the Flies. It's a little bit Titanic. It examines the class system between the very, very rich who go on a pleasure cruise and the people who serve them. And, that sort of upstairs, downstairs kind of dynamic that we've had since Upstairs, Downstairs was first written. And it's about the class system, and it's also about manipulation. And one of the funny things is it starts with a scene where it's a male model. One of the reveals about the industry is the male model is dating this female model, and in the industry of fashion modeling, females get paid way more than males do, right? Because obviously there's more cachet in being a female model. But and there's an argument at the beginning of the movie about paying for dinner, and the young couple are arguing about who should pick up the bill, and he's like, the male is saying that's not the point isn't about who's not paying the bill. The point is about the difference between male and the male and female dynamic, and how he feels that they should be like equals, and because they're friends and stuff like that. Anyway, so one of the comments I heard, after I watched the movie, I went on to Letterboxd, and the director was reading the good reviews and the bad reviews, and one of the 2-star reviews said this all could have been avoided if they just split the check, right? But yeah, it's definitely worth watching. It's interesting. It won the Palme d'Or in Cannes last year, so It's a bit like White Lotus too. That's the other parallel too. So, but I mean, the advice I got before I saw it, somebody told me to see it like a month or two ago, and they said, I can't tell you anything about it, just watch it. And that's my advice to you. Just watch it. Don't go in with any expectations at all, and just sit back, put your head back. Here comes the drill.
And where is it on?
And it's on Amazon Prime right now, in Canada anyway. The other one, these two came up today, and this is a red band trailer. So if you're not 18, don't watch this trailer. But it's called Dumb Money, and I'm trying to remember what it's about. It's about the GameStop stock.
Oh right,
yeah. Remember how that blew up?
Yep.
So yeah, it's stars Paul Dano as the YouTube advisor who everybody kind of follows, and yeah, it looks like a fun romp. And everybody can't believe, I can't say what they're saying because of this. We have a sort of a G rating on this show, but everybody uses the same expression when they see the price of the stock as it goes up and down again, I guess, on the other side. And speaking of empires growing and whatever, I don't know if this is a tongue firmly planted in cheek, but Zach Galifianakis and, I've lost her name now, star in Beanie Baby, which is about the whole Beanie Bubble is the name of the movie, but it's about the Beanie Baby empire where the toy just took off and
people were speculating like they were stocks.
Yeah, so and it's about how the two founders kind of they're together at the beginning and they kind of split up, and yeah, it looks like a funny sort of movie. So, and I don't know if we talked about this, but during the break, I watched Air. Have you guys seen Air?
Yeah, I watched it during our break too. Yeah,
I've been
it's a fantastic movie. Like, very sort of a bit like *Halt and Catch Fire*, kind of retelling of the introduction of the Michael Jordan, the Air Jordans, I guess they're called, right? So quite a good movie. So if you haven't seen that one, directed by Ben Affleck, which is again another great effort by him. And
it was really interesting. I thought it was very neat how they basically told a story about Michael Jordan that did not include Michael Jordan.
Yes, 100%.
Very interesting. Yeah.
I'm saving that one because the significant other, she's not going to be interested in that, so I got to watch that on my own time. And I might pair it with maybe this is like a shadow pick here. August 6th is when season 2 of Winning Time resumes.
Oh, I loved Winning
Max.
Time.
So that one about the 80s Lakers feels like it's like about the right thing to have an evening of watching the first episode of that and also watching Air.
Yeah, I don't think you and I have talked about that one. I love that series. That was so much fun.
I haven't watched that one yet.
Yeah, Crave here in Canada.
Yeah.
On my watch list, I just one quick thing. I noticed we're starting to get close to the end of the month, so they're starting to announce what's coming soon onto streaming platforms. I noticed one that caught my eye. Jaime, you mentioned this last week as one of your picks. Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves is coming to Netflix in Canada on July 2nd, so only have to wait another 10 or 11 days before we get a chance to watch that one on the free, our subsidized sci-fi.
Dungeons & Dragons on Netflix, it says.
What did I say?
You said free.
Well, it's on Netflix. I mean, really. Who isn't getting their Netflix for free now?
Jaime, what do you got for us today?
I have Mayor of Kingstown, so I just got around to finishing the second season. This is on Paramount Plus in the United States and apparently Canada, according to JustWatch.com. So this is about, this stars Jeremy Renner, Hawkeye, you know that guy?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah,
and he is
This is pre-snowblower accident, right?
Yeah, which I guess it's not too spoilerific because this is that kind of show of like, I'm pretty sure they will do a third season. I don't know if they're going to do a, Jeremy Renner's character gets attacked by the Wampa kind of thing to get around like what happened to him, like just like Mark Hamill in Empire Strikes Back. But ignoring that, if folks don't know, this is about a prison town where the town really doesn't have anything besides the penitentiaries there. So you're either a prisoner or you're a guard or somebody who works for the prison system. You're a cop or you're somebody who's related to those folks. And there's a lot of gang activity, and Jeremy Renner's character, Mike McCluskey, he's somebody who has to sort of keep the peace, is sort of the way. So he's not really like a good person. Like, it's really clear that like he is involved in criminal conspiracies, if you look at it that way. So from like a Tony Soprano sort of like, or Walter White, you're essentially rooting for the bad guy, but he's trying to keep things peaceful while being a mediator and broker amongst all of these varying factions that, you know, are doing terrible people things. So if that sounds interesting at all, you know, go find trailers. I'm sure they're available on like YouTube and stuff, but this is one that I can recommend. And I like the analogies to like my own sort of professional life of like, it sometimes feels like I can really empathize with him. And not that I work with criminals, just to be really clear. I don't, but just like, oh my gosh, I'm just like trying to corral all these cats and get them to go in the same direction.
Yeah.
So it's nothing to do with the Renovations that's on Disney Plus or the Jeremy Renner, Diane Sawyer interview?
It does not have anything to do with it, and it is not to be confused with Mayor of Easttown, which is a completely different show.
That was a great show.
Yeah, that was a good one too.
Yeah.
But it's a little weird that you have two shows around the same time that sound vaguely similar if you don't actually know the real name.
Yeah, would have been funny if it was Mayor of Queenstown.
Yeah, I was going to say, isn't there an old 80s movie?
Yeah, something. Yeah, I like Renner. I've, you know, outside of obviously he's definitely well known for his appearances as Hawkeye in the MCU. I mean, Hurt Locker was such a tremendous performance for him, but I've enjoyed him in some of the sort of dramatic roles over the years that I've seen him in. So yeah, this might be worth a watch at some point soon.
Speaking of classics, did you guys watch Ron's Gone Wrong?
No.
Right up there with Paw Patrol.
Yeah, it looked funny.
Yes,
That's
it's
the kid
through the
from
animated one.
Shazam.
Yeah.
The kid from Shazam does voices the character. It's pretty funny. Sort of like Tamagotchi gone wild kind of thing.
Yeah, I actually do. Now that you've described it the way I have seen that, it's probably like a DreamWorks film or Illumination.
The Disney Plus, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you said it's on Disney Plus. It's a Disney film?
You don't know who it is by. Let me see if I can get it without starting it. No, it's starting. Hang on. What do you have to? You have to long press on Disney to get the details, right? It's not playing
on Disney. If you do the single click, it brings you in. Then there's like information if you go down to the one side, right?
Yeah, but I'm in the app on the phone.
Oh, on the phone. Yeah, I don't really use that very much.
Yeah, wait, where did it go? I've lost it. Still got to finish Rebels too.
You do.
Almost done.
I'm getting there on that one.
I did that during our time off. I watched the entire run for the probably fourth time. And man, there's so many good episodes. It's incredible. It's such an incredible series. I will put that up against anything else Star Wars.
I still have to watch the last season too, the one that just came out a couple of years ago, right?
Oh man.
Clone Wars, I guess it is Clone Wars.
Oh, Clone Wars they finished that one
off. But I have to finish Rebels and then go back to the Clone Wars, right?
I mean, you can watch it in any order you want, but the last season of Clone Wars is quite good. That's where we get our first meeting of the Bad Batch, and then the final, I think it's 3 or 4 episodes, basically happen concurrently with Revenge of the Sith, and it is fantastic. And really ties into like the Mandalorian and all the stuff that's happening right now too. Yeah, my favorite Star Wars thing, I think.
Well, I guess that's it for another week. So, Jonathan, if people want to get in touch with you, where do they find you?
You could find me on Twitter and Instagram as @JPKNews or on YouTube at youtube.com/@JPK.
And Jaime, if people want to get in touch with you, where do they find you?
I'm on Twitter as @DevWithAHair.
All right. My name is Timitra, TIMMITRA, on the Twitter machine, the Mastodon machine. Still waiting for that Blue Sky invite. Come on. Until next time, we'll see you in the future. Bye. Or on another timeline with a different host.
Played by an actor to be named later.
Yeah, or one that was on before. You never know.
Bye.
Okay, bye.
You've been listening to the Spotcast Podcast. This is Jean-Luc Picard. Shut up, Wesley. Sorry, say again. Just the tag. Gotcha. If you want to find out more about the podcast or see the episode show notes, visit the Spotcast website at spotcast.com. You can get in touch with us on the website or follow us on Twitter @Spotcast. If you have feedback or questions, send us a tweet with the hashtag AskSpotcast. If you like the show, please consider recommending us to a friend, writing a review on iTunes, or pledging any amount at patreon.com/Spotcast. You can find details on how to help us on our website, spotcast.com/sponsor us. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the future.
Get Ready Room or similar previews of the next week's episode of Star Trek?
YouTube, right?
Yeah, it's on YouTube. We can watch it here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you guys seen the preview for the next episode of Strange New Worlds?
Nope.
Is it a spoiler for you if I tell you all? Because it's looks like a little trailer. So the little snippet scene we're shown is in one of the hallways of the USS Enterprise, and La'an sees some random dude who's injured collapse in the hallway. She's like, "Who the heck are you?" And she's like, "Wait, you weren't shot with like a phaser. You were shot with a gun." And he says, "So stuff is happening in the past. You have to help solve it." And then he sort of like disappears, and like the Marty McFly sort of like things have changed wave happens, and she goes to the bridge and she's like, "I need to go tell the captain." And the captain is Kirk, who we've seen before, and he says, "Who the heck are you?" So we've got some sort of timey-wimey thing clearly going on in next week's episode.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, they 2 for 2, 2 good episodes back to back so far to start the season. It's pretty good. Can't complain.
And I looked at my list here because I'm keeping track of where I'm at with Rebels. So I'm in season 2. Next episode is episode 19. So I'm nearly done with season 2.
Oh, hold on to your socks, kid.
So I'm like nearing the midway point where I can, because it's a weird series. It's like first season is 15 episodes, 22 for the second, 22 for the third, and 16 for the fourth. So it's a little less daunting as I watch a few episodes. I try to do a few episodes every few days so I get, a big chunk of the way week by week in anticipation of this being important for the Ahsoka series in August.
Yeah. I hope it is not spoiling to say that the end of the 2-part finale for season 2 is a freaking banger. It might be my favorite thing in Star Wars, but that 2-part finale is wow. Like, I just watched it again. Probably I've watched that easily 4 or 5 times. So it's that 2-parter. It is mind-blowingly good.
This is a weird show for me. It feels like it has a lot of similarities with Star Trek Prodigy, where superficially I'm like, oh yeah, here's like the kids show construct, right? But then I'm like, but underneath the surface it's really dark. Like Zeb, like they just kind of casually talk over the fact that like his people were genocided. I'm like, oh, there you go, kids, enjoy that when you buy the toys of the Phantom and the oh crap! I should know this. What is it? The goat? No, the Ghost and the Phantom. What are the name of the 2 ships?
It's the Phantom and the Ghost, because they're Spectres. Spectres is their code names.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. It's not only that, but then you throw in, so his entire race was genocided. Ezra's parents like had a the whole storyline there with them, like what happened to them, and then they talk about, the dark beginnings of the Kanan character. They talk about like they'll get more into the backstory for Sabine, where she comes from is really, really dark too. Like it just keeps doubling down as the series goes on, as they get closer and closer to the sort of end of Rebels, which is sort of closer to Star Wars Episode 4. It just keeps getting like bleaker and darker as you're going. You're like, this is a kids show. Honestly, when it first came out, it came out when there was no Disney Plus. It was on, I think, Disney Family or something like that. And so I watched a few of the episodes, and the first few episodes did not grab me, and so I didn't really watch much of season 1. And one of my friends who's also a big Star Wars buff said to me, sort of as we're getting close to the end of season 1, like, do yourself a favor, go back and watch it. It's really starting to pull together. And yeah, season 1's a little more inconsistent, but by the time you get to 2, and 2 really tightens up, 3 is rock solid and 4 is rock solid. And I was just like, wow, I thought this was a kid's show. I thought it was, like, even more so than Clone Wars, I thought this was supposed to be like, oh, they're younger and they're fun and they're out having space adventures. No, it goes to some seriously dark places, and it tells some really, really emotional character stories. Yeah, I absolutely love it. And it is, season 3 and 4 particularly are going to be absolutely essential watching before Ahsoka comes out in August.
Good, because I've enjoyed the first 2 seasons so far. So if you're saying it only gets better from here, that's a good sign.
Yeah, there's very little, again, you're right, Jaime, like there's, the episode counts go up and down a little bit, and you sort of think to yourself, well, 22 episodes on a Clone Wars season, especially the first 5 seasons, there's easily 7 or 8 episodes you can kind of throw over the side of the boat they're fine, but they are just there. But there are very few sort of filler episodes in the last 2 seasons of Rebels, like very few, where you're not like, something important's happening here. And again, it's all out of Dave Filoni's brain, and Dave Filoni is the mastermind behind the whole, Mandalorian, Book of Boba Fett, Ahsoka, Thrawn arc. So yeah, it's much required viewing.
Definitely got charm for it, and the chopper droid sounds. I think you had mentioned this. It's like a chicken or rooster. Yeah. It's good sound design there. You can really tell the personality and the more or less what it's saying contextually from that. So that's cool. Yeah,
and again, they've clearly, there's a lot of love inside the Star Wars verse for this stuff too. Again, the chopper. In Rogue One, Chopper wheels by at one point. You do see the ghost in the fight over what's the Scarif? The fight over Scarif. You see the ghost fighting in there, and they call Hera's name over the intercom when they're at the Yavin base at one point. So there's definitely a love for tying this into the greater narrative too. It's not just a cartoon. It's part of the big picture.
You know what else I watched was Meet Cute. You guys heard about that one?
Cute. Is that the Kaley Cuoco?
Yeah, Kaley Cuoco and Pete Davidson.
Yeah.
Yeah, I stumbled across that one and watched it. It's pretty interesting. It's kind of a Groundhog Day-ish. Yeah, she's a time traveler and she keeps repeating the same date over and over again.
Oh yeah, I think you mentioned this one to me. Yeah.
Did I?
Yeah, I think. Well, we saw each other just a few days ago, right?
I don't remember mentioning it to you, though.
Well, in the last week, we've been to a concert and a movie together, so somewhere in there, I think you mentioned it.
Okay.
We've done some standing around.
Yeah. I've been watching Bupkis. That's pretty good. I might have told you about Bupkis.
I don't know.
The Pete Davidson show?
Oh, yeah, I think he did.
Yeah. Pretty interesting. It's sort of his version of Entourage, I guess.
Yeah.
Where Edie Falco plays his mother and Joe Pesci plays his grandfather, I guess. Didn't we see The Flash on Monday? Oh, no, we saw it on Sunday.
Yeah, it was Sunday night because you had Monday off, right?
I had Juneteenth off. Just like an American.
I was going to say, how very American of you.
Exciting.
The secret is Canadians take both American holidays and Canadian holidays off.
Well, no, we changed the holiday because my boss was coming to Toronto and he booked it months ago and he didn't realize that this was going to be National Indigenous Peoples Day on Wednesday. So, yeah, so we switched. So a bunch of us switched our Monday for Wednesday for Monday.
Is National Indigenous Peoples Day a specific day? Like, is it always the 21st, or is it meant to coincide with the solstice?
It is.
Is it the solstice?
It is always on the 21st because of the solstice. It is part of the traditional celebrations for a lot of Indigenous peoples living in Canada.
So is it going to be a federal thing at some point or provincial thing?
I don't think so. I mean, I'd be curious. Given its proximity to Canada Day, which is July 1st for you, Jaime, I don't know if they ever will do that. They did make the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation on September 29th a federal holiday, but it's not a provincial holiday yet in all the provinces. So I get the day off because I'm a federal employee, but it's not for everybody. Same with Remembrance Day. We get Remembrance Day off because it's a federal holiday because they close so that all the politicians can be in their jurisdictions and observe Remembrance Day on November 11th, but they don't necessarily do that for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in favor of more federal and provincial holidays. If they want to keep putting them out there, I'm down. I'm supportive.
Yeah.
I always wanted them to make the first Prime Minister of Canada was a man named Sir John A. Macdonald, who, in retrospect, in the light of day now, as more stuff comes out about the treatment of Indigenous people here in Canada, was a bit of a not so great character in history. But when I was a kid, I found out that his birthday was the same as mine in January, and I was always like, why isn't there a Prime Minister's Day? We should celebrate it on January 11th.
Yeah.
But, I was a kid and didn't know that dude was not so great.
Yeah, he's also great.
No. Did we lose Jaime? Jaime, are you still there?
No, I was thinking about the, we've got that sort of thoughts around, there's many folks not so happy about Columbus Day. And usually you have, Indigenous folks Day. So I feel like the addendum to never meet your heroes is never make a statue of your heroes, never make a holiday after your heroes. Yeah. Just read about them in the history books, talk about them, but maybe not make a celebration, because you start chipping away at that, and people are people, and sometimes people are bad people.
Yeah. Well, especially people, it seems, unfortunately, of the lighter skin. Yeah, I really hope that at no point there's a repeal on like Martin Luther King Day or anything like that. But I think his words were sort of out there for everybody to know and are sort of more accepted. But yeah, again, I don't think they'll be putting up many more statues. As a matter of fact, they're doing pretty active teardown of statues of some of Canada's initial leaders, given the spotlight that is turned on the amount of damage they've done to a lot of people here. But then again, isn't the slave owner who didn't want to pay his taxes, isn't that what they refer to as your first president, Jaime?
like I said, it just gets more bonkers. Like the cartoonified version that we got in elementary school back in the 80s is a lot different than what you'll see now in the 10-part expose on the TLC, the Learning Channel or History Channel, or somebody who's really good at this stuff as a historian on YouTube. So I don't know. It's better to know these things, I think, rather than sort of papering over it as we would have done in the past.
Yeah. I was telling, we'll sign off on this one, Jaime, and we do not need to include this in the podcast. I was telling Tim that the NBA draft is tonight, which you may or may not be aware of, and following along with. The Raptors had the 13th pick, and they drafted a young man from America whose last name is Dick, D-I-C-K. The social media is having a field day tonight with the idea of the Raptors. What a stroke of genius to draft Dick,
Is this going to be one of those things where people are going to go on the NBA site, try to make the custom jersey, and then get denied because it's profanity? You have to wait for the official jersey to come out before you can actually get your hands on one?
I saw people posting already saying, I have already tried to order my Dick jersey. So
it is kind of a dick move, right?
It is a dick move. Or is it a stroke of genius? Yep. Well, it's cheaper to get that on the back of a jersey than Wembanyama. The young man that was drafted first overall from France is a young man named Victor Wembanyama.
Do you pay for the letter?
You do. You pay by the letter.
Oh.
And in that case, you're splurging. That's 10.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a nickname option there if I ever heard one. Find a shorter nickname. You can make the jersey with fewer letters.
Yeah, Wemby. You're in. There, you're done.
Wemby.
Yeah, this guy is, I don't know if you've seen any of the highlights, but this guy looks incredible. I can't wait to see this guy play NBA basketball. He's 7'4", 230 pounds, and his wingspan is almost 9 feet from fingertip to fingertip. It's crazy.
9 feet. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Lopsided.
From when he puts his arms out to the side, his wingspan from the tip of his biggest finger to his tip of his biggest finger is, I think they said, almost 9 feet.
But I thought, like, when you open your arms up, you're as long as you are tall, usually, right?
Or more so if you were somebody who's of his proportions, because apparently he's 7'4", but his arms are even longer when extended.
They're freakishly long.
They said he can simultaneously defend the basket and the 3-point line. And there's actually highlights of him doing that. It is the craziest thing I've ever seen on a basketball court.
Oh.
So from the court up to the hoop is 10 feet. So if he did one of those, like, I don't know what this is called in yoga. It's like a side plank, but your arm is fully extended and holding you up. Like, he's only about a foot shy of being able to dunk the thing.
Yeah. They said for him to slam, it's a bunny hop. Like, really? He just has to do a little dunk, and he's got a slam dunk.
I guess they have to start raising the net, right?
There was a play. I'll see if I can dig out the clip and send it to you guys. There was a play in the French league this year where he tried a 3-pointer, and he wasn't a corner 3-pointer, so it was all the way out. So it was almost 30 feet from the basket. He shot the 3-pointer. It went up in the air and it bounced off of the rim. And in the time it took for it to make that bounce, he closed the distance and he slammed the ball.
That's pretty incredible. Like, if he had a fadeaway jumper, just given with that wingspan, how far back he can be from a defender in his face. And if he could land those, he'd be literally impossible to stop.
He does. I was reading an article about him the other day, and apparently he studied Pete Maravich's dribbling technique. So he dribbles really low, and then he arcs backwards with his jumper. Like, it's indefensible. You couldn't get your hands high enough to defend if he can shoot up high like Nikola Jokic. You could never defend him. It's incredible.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah, this guy's going to be something. Again, he's a little slight. He's going to get pushed around a little bit by some of the bigger, stronger players in the league for the first few years, but he just looks like he's going to be a super fun player to watch. 7'5" point guard. See if I can find this. Here we go. 3-point dunk. I'll find it here. There, I'm going to paste this into our Slack channel here. You can see this. This isn't some nuts stuff. Yep. He's the one on the outside there. Takes the 3-pointer, runs in, and jams it home. You both have to be really fast, really tall, and really athletic to pull that off. Off his own 3-point miss. I've seen people obviously put a putback off their own miss, but a 3-point miss? That is insane.
He has ties with this guy.
Yeah. Last time he was officially measured, he was 7'4". People think he might have grown still because he's only 19.
Yeah.
Again, my biggest fear is that someone's going to like accidentally roll into one of his knees, and that'll be the end of that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because he's pretty slight. And at some point, he's going to play somebody like Zion Williamson, who's like 340 pounds of muscle and is just going to cream him.
There's another clip here that 10 times Victor, what's his name, has shocked the NBA world.
Oh, I'm telling you, the highlights are something else. His ability to block the basketball. There's like 2 other guys, Dikembe Mutombo and what was the African player who played for the Bullets? Oh God, who was like crazy tall? Oh, Manute Bol. He was like 7'6" with the same kind of arm span. He averaged like 5 blocks a game as a rookie back in the 80s. Yeah, I had so much fun watching basketball this year, even though the Raptors were pretty mediocre. The league has got so much talent in it right now. There's just so many fun stories and players, and just a really, really deep league full of athletic, fun players. It's definitely the sport I'm enjoying the most right now. Now, if all we could just get a team back in Seattle, it would all be right with the universe again.
There we go.
All right. I think I need to call it because I have to get up at the crack of dawn.
Okay.
All right. Ciao.
All right.
Talk to you later.
Talk to you next week, guys.
Later, skater.
Bye.